Balake. Where is Balake at?
Name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here. Let's give that another shot, you guys. I'm joined by Clearwater, Florida Vice Mayor Mark Bunker. Can you hear me, Mark?
I can. It's very exciting.
You know, damn Zeno and his body thetans are always getting into the works and messing it up.
I'm blaming it all on Miscavige.
Guys, for those of you just joining us, this is Mark Bunker's YouTube channel over here at Mark Bunker. Please go over there and subscribe because Mark is going to be starting his re-election campaign for the Clearwater City Council in 4 weeks. And between his channel and my channel and videos he does and videos we do together, we are going to be promoting his re-election campaign like nobody's business. And we are going to raise an absolute fortune because that's what it's going to take for Mark to defeat Scientology's efforts to defeat him. Why don't you just tell everyone real quick who you are, Mark?
Well, I have been speaking out against Scientology fraud and abuse since 1999. And I moved here to Clearwater in 2000 to work with the Lisa McPherson Trust, which was a group trying to help people who'd been abused or defrauded by the group. And then, I moved back here in 2013 because those 2 years I was at the LMT were the most fascinating years of my life. I thought I wanted to come back and see if I could make a difference here on my own. And part of the reasoning was to eventually run for office, which I've done, and I won. So we have to win again. That's the most important part.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is it fair to say?
Remember, I'm one of those folks who's an outsider who just became fascinated by the entire topic.
Yeah. Were you as surprised as anyone that you won your election the first time?
I was. And I have to say, at that moment, I was sick as a dog. And this is right when COVID had first appeared. And I was convinced, I've got COVID because I've never felt worse in my life. And so I was forced to isolate. That just the day before Election Day, I had to go into the one a hospital in the area that was doing swab testing, and everyone was wearing their like astronaut suits, all the doctors and nurses, and it was like, oh my God, we're all gonna die. It's Ebola. And so when it came time for the results to be mentioned, it even slipped my mind. Oh yeah, they're going to call those results in just a few minutes. And I found out, as I find out a lot of things, from Tracy McManus, who I think called me to congratulate me. And it was an unbelievable evening.
I totally forgot that you were quarantining on that day.
Yeah, and it was so frustrating because first time I ever ran for office, I couldn't go and vote for myself and see my name on the ballot, and that was disappointing. And then people always say, well, why didn't you vote by mail? Well, if I'd known I was going to be deadly ill on that day, oh yeah, sure, I would have voted a few weeks earlier. But I plan to go to the polls.
So why do you think Scientology didn't? Because I think you've said before that Scientology didn't really take your campaign very seriously the first time. Why do you think that was?
Well, I don't know if Scientology didn't take me seriously. I don't think anyone did. I don't think the other candidates did. The powers that be just thought, well, this is going to go nowhere. And I had belief in the people of Clearwater, that they would come through. It was a nail biter, but this time out is going to be different because this time all the moneyed folks and Scientology, well, who's a bigger money folk than the cult of Scientology, They'll be working hard to make sure that I don't get reelected.
Yeah. So, so even though they probably weren't expecting you to win, they did go out of the way to give you a hard time during your campaign. I mean, I remember watching some of those debate forums, debates or forums, they're really more forums than debates.
Yeah.
And they would send like, I don't know, 10, 20 Scientologists who were pretending they were just a grassroots, organic grassroots thing, who would shout and jeer and yell, bigot, every time you stood up to answer any question whatsoever.
Well, it would be the moment I mentioned the word Scientology. That's when they shout their messages to me.
Right. Did the police not even threaten to remove one of them at one of these forums? Or
yeah,
am I misremembering that?
Point, I mean, this mostly happened on the one forum that was in your neighborhood. That's the night that another candidate's manager, Alicio Santana, his manager is this old guy who looks like Doctor Who #3, John Pertwee. Got this big flamboyant white hair, and he was adamantly against me running right from the get-go. I didn't know that he was going to turn out to be Alicio's campaign manager, but I ran into him at a political event where people of the Democratic Party were getting together to hear from candidates, and afterwards he came up to me and said, "Oh, you shouldn't be denigrating Scientologists." Well, I don't talk about individual Scientologists at all. They're good, smart, decent people who are trying to save the planet. I talk about the abusive behavior of the organization, and primarily that organization targets the members of Scientology that they're not happy with at the moment. But he was adamantly against this. And so on that night, at that particular forum where the shouting started, there were a group of 5 to 7 Scientologists, and they were all sitting with him. And the police actually toward the end were called in, and they started to try to silence them. I told them during the course of the forum, hey, I'd be happy to talk with you. Afterwards we can talk. But they scampered out the door the second that the forum was over. And I heard that they all piled into one car with that campaign manager and drove off.
Am I making this up? I remember someone reporting that guy was actually seen coming out of the Fort Harrison Hotel. Does that ring any bells?
Yeah, well, yeah, but I don't really know anything about that. I didn't hear that personally. I heard it secondhand.
Got it. It's funny that you mentioned that. It happened to be one of the forums that took place in one of the meeting halls in my neighborhood, because I haven't spoken about my neighborhood association on this channel in a long time because there's been no reason to, but I'm on the board of my neighborhood association, and there's a ton of Scientologists who live in my neighborhood. And those Scientologists come to our monthly meetings, and they talk to me, and they associate with me, and they're friendly with me, and they know exactly who I am. And, I know because disconnection gets talked about so much in the press and everything, people think that a Scientologist would be like declared for even talking to me. And the answer is yes, but only without permission. Like, Scientology gives these Scientologists almost an edict that we cannot cede ground to these evil SPs. We have to meet them on the battlefield. And if Aaron's on the board of this neighborhood association, we need as many Scientologists as possible showing up to that meeting so that Aaron can't take this whole thing over. And so out of all the neighborhood associations in Clearwater, it just so happens that my meetings are the ones that have the most Scientologists, and the forum that happened in the same place that we have our neighborhood association meetings, that is where this all went down. I mean, I think the people in the audience were horrified to see this kind of childish behavior from Scientology. Did you get feedback?
Yeah. There was a negative reaction to it. That always happens when Scientology tries to pull a stunt.
Yeah.
People weren't thrilled.
Yeah. So, I think it's fair to say that a lot of people in the world think Scientology runs Clearwater. And someone who's watched a lot of my videos might even say, well, Aaron, you're one of the people who's given us that impression because you've talked about the Clearwater political establishment having been, co-opted by Scientology, the corrupting influence of Scientology's money. And I stand by the statements that I've made about that. But the fact is, it's not like Salt Lake City where the Mormons actually run the city. Like they actually own most of everything. Scientology in Clearwater is so hated and is so toxic and has behaved so poorly as a community partner, not as a belief system, but as a member of the community, as a community partner, has sabotaged Clearwater in so many ways. And I don't just mean by their mere existence. I mean proactively sabotaging development and economic activity in downtown Clearwater. That a Scientologist has never even attempted to run for city council, because anyone who has an actual documented history of being in Scientology would have a 0% chance of winning. It's not like Salt Lake City where a Mormon would have an advantage running for office. Would you agree with me on this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yes, I like to, troll David Miscavige pretty hard. And I like to troll the members of the city council who publicly are very weak on Scientology. But I do think it's in Clearwater's best interests for people to understand that Scientology doesn't really pull the strings in the way that most people think that they do. What are your thoughts on this? Because there is a chilling effect, right? Like, would you agree with me that the council members seem to be terrified of doing something to overtly piss off Scientology? Is it just me?
Well, if there was something we could do that would, actually get the attention of the FBI or the police or the district attorney or somebody who could actually do something, the rest of the council, I'm sure, would hop on board. But because you and Mike joined me when we went to talk to the FBI, they said, well, you give us a piece of evidence. You tell us exactly where we can find the smoking gun. We will go in there, we'll get a court order, and we'll raid the place. Short of that, no one will do anything, which is, the easiest way to say, well, I'd like to, but I can't, nobody on the council is, loves Scientology or what they've done to the city. Our mayor, when I started, was Frank Hibbard, a guy that I like and admired. He up and quit a few months back, but he certainly knew what Scientology was and how they acted. He back in the mid-teens was invited to come and speak at the Fort Harrison at the point where Republicans were really being courted by Scientology. What's the name of the woman that they hired who was a big Republican?
Mary Repper?
Yeah. So he was convinced to go and speak at the Fort Harrison, and they gave him a speech to read. He read it and said, no, I'm not reading that. I'll write something of my own. So that night he showed up. He gave them the speech to put in the teleprompter. He was introduced. He came up on stage. He saw that they didn't change it. Their speech was in the teleprompter. And he just walked off stage. And he and his wife walked out of the building. So, I mean, they know they know how Scientology behaves, but the people have become so complacent in the fact that we really can't do anything about it, that they go, why bother? Well, I think there's good reason to bother. It's only because people like us have been speaking out for decades, and journalists have been doing all of these stories that have allowed people like Alex Gibney to do Going Clear on HBO, and Leah Remini to do her TV series, which has really educated the public. I mean, the world has changed for Scientology in a very negative way, because now everybody knows. Everybody knows that Shelley Miscavige is missing, disappeared by her husband. How amazing is that, when there was a point where nobody knew who Xenu was? Okay, sure. But now they know minutiae, like Miscavige disappeared his wife. That's the change that's come about over the last couple of decades of people being more willing to speak up and take action. So we have to keep working at it.
Yeah.
Find exactly that thing that's going to, bring a real, not retribution, but real justice to Scientology.
Yeah.
You can be an ex-president who perhaps tried to overthrow the government and get away with it for so long, but eventually, people will start to say, "Hey, maybe we should take this to court." Same thing with Scientology.
All right. Well, since you're the vice mayor, I'll make an exception to my no politics rule.
I didn't name anybody.
It could have been any. It could have been any ex-president.
Sure. If Clinton had tried this, put him in jail.
It could have been Frank Hibbard. No.
Could have been.
Okay, so the thing is, though, like, and I feel like I'm gonna beat this horse until it's most thoroughly dead. For all of probably the untold millions of dollars that Clearwater, Florida has spent on various PR initiatives and everything like this, I mean, even promoting the hell out of their beach, like, there's no question that the city of Clearwater understands the role and the value of public relations, right? That's why they fight so hard to get America's #1 beach every year, that kind of stuff. Tracy McManus is a very diligent reporter on issues concerning downtown Clearwater politics and Scientology. And if I were any one of these other council members, I would be thinking that part of my job was to do everything in my power to improve the PR of Scientology. And that would include countering the negative PR that people think this is a Scientology town. And yet the council members routinely give Tracy a reason to write articles that make them all seem like they have no idea what they're dealing with when it comes to Scientology. Is it too much for me to ask for let's say for a moment that the council members really don't know what they can do about Scientology? Is it too much to hope that one or all of them at any given meeting would just say in their closing statements, I just want to say for the record, even though it's not on the agenda, I just want to say to the people of Clearwater, we know Scientology is trying to sabotage us. We're just not sure what we can do about it yet, but please know we're trying to figure it out, because the world honestly looks at these guys. I mean, look, I put up a comment earlier. There's people in London, there's people in England who tune in and watch the council meetings.
Yeah,
people
nuts.
think these guys all have their heads up their asses and are either paid off or afraid or dumb or ignorant. And it would be so simple just to make a closing statement that, like, look, guys, we are sick and tired of being jerked around by the Church of Scientology on fake development deals and stalled negotiations about this or that. I just want to go on the record that we are not under any illusions about what's going on here. Well, tell me why they can't do that.
Well, they could do it. I don't think they feel it's in their best interests to do it for one reason or another. Just because most politicians don't get involved in that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a message for my reelection campaign, that, you need at least one person willing to not be afraid to call out Scientology. And what would be great is if we could have a council of 4 members not afraid and a mayor who's not afraid, just like it was when Gabe Casares was the mayor. And just like in the early 80s, 82, when they held a week's worth of hearings about Scientology and brought in people like Paulette Cooper and L. Ron Hubbard Jr. to discuss the organization and alert the city to what we were dealing with here. I wish we could have people with a backbone who would be willing to do that. Yeah. Short of that, we need at least one guy willing to stand up and say, I'm not afraid of you, and this is the way you behave. Let's discuss that openly.
That's right.
I mean, the fact that they've been sabotaging our downtown, first, just by being there, making it a nuclear radioactive zone, and now by buying up all the property and just letting it sit there. I mean, it's just insane that they can get away with that. And speaking up about it is the least we can do.
Yeah.
The least. Call them out. It's like, I think we probably talked about this in the last video where, I'm an ex officio member on the Downtown Development Board, which is 5 out of 6 of them are high-level wealthy Scientologists. One of them now is a realtor who did a lot of these deals for the buildings that were purchased secretly downtown and in the marina. So, I made the point recently, you folks up there, you're in the best position to go to these business owners and talk to them and find out why they're not putting businesses into their empty buildings. And oh my God, you'd think that I had pulled out a gun and said, you got to do this. It's like, are you insane? Why does that seem like an irresponsible question? But oh my God, you can't mention Scientology at the Downtown Development Board. And their attorney, who's not a Scientologist, called the city attorney to complain about me and my behavior, when really I was being as pleasant as can be. I wasn't being, I wasn't accusing them. I was saying, listen, this is the best thing that you could do, and you're in the best position to do it. That is not an unreasonable thing to say. And more of the people on the council should be saying the exact same thing.
Yeah,
we should be getting to the bottom of what the hell's going on here.
Yeah,
and we're not going to be able to do that if we don't openly talk about it.
Yeah. Well, the fact is, you are the only one of the 5-member council who is not afraid to speak out publicly. Say the word Scientology with I honestly, some of these people seem literally afraid to say the word Scientology. They'll use euphemisms, they'll talk around it, and then someone's got to speak up and be like, "Can we just, for the record, let everyone? Yeah, we are talking about Scientology." And it's like, anyway. So, if anything, their reluctance to put their necks on the line is almost doing you a favor, because the fact is, you're the only one there. That's why it's so important that we all help you get reelected. I mean, honestly, it's just mind blowing. Look, one of the things that David Miscavige keeps pitching to the city is that if the city will just sell him this tiny little piece of vacant land behind the Fort Harrison Hotel, he will move forward with these grand plans to redevelop and beautify all of downtown Clearwater and bring in movie theaters and bring in Tom Cruise and bring in high-end retail and steakhouses and all this stuff. And you go, these are great ideas, but ideas are worth what you paid for them. And for the record, that's nothing. And recently, a high-level Scientologist, Carolyn Bradham, OT8, one of the few Scientologists, actually, I will say the only Scientologist I know of who had a successful food establishment on Cleveland, right in downtown. All of a sudden, she abruptly closed up shop, closed both of her businesses, and made plans to move out of town. She told everyone it's because she was having a medical crisis with her parents and she's going to move to Arizona and take care of them. Well, some insiders have told me that the real reason she left town is because her Scientologist landlord, Moises Agami, refused to allow her to make some internal renovations that she needed to make to comply with the health and safety codes that the city had found her to be in violation of. So you have Carolyn herself, who's a high-level Scientologist and a successful business owner. Her landlord is an incredibly wealthy Scientologist. And between the two of these people, like, you have the Scientologist landlord literally chasing out successful businesses, even ones that are run by fellow Scientologists. I just hope the politicians, the other politicians in Clearwater, understand Miscavige's promises are worth less than nothing. You'd have to be a moron at this point to even consider anything this guy is proposing. When if he wanted to do any of these things, he could have done them anytime in the last 40 years.
And now, of course, he is doing 3 properties on one block of Cleveland Street downtown. These aren't owned by Scientology, but for some reason, Miscavige was able to tell these individual members that they need to redo their buildings. And the video they put up about the revamp looks exactly like a video that would come from Scientology's in-house video department. It looks exactly like it's a Scientology project. And, you know, we're supposed to just pretend that everything's fine. Look at this. They're doing something nice for us now. Well, who knows what's going to go in there? They haven't said there's going to be a business in there. They, you know, is it going to be empty offices or, you know, probably not anything that's really going to be productive. We'll find out when they get that done.
But here's what's crazy. The only thing Scientology has shown they can succeed at is buying and renovating buildings. Now, those buildings end up empty, but Scientology is very good at buying and rehabilitating and renovating buildings. So when the city of Clearwater told Miscavige, hey, we'd like you to show us a little bit of a good faith effort on all of these promises you're making. This is how twisted Miscavige is. Instead of understanding that what Clearwater wants is thriving businesses occupying Scientology's empty buildings, Miscavige goes, I've got a brilliant idea. How about I kick the businesses out of these buildings that are operating there successfully, and I'll renovate them and make them beautiful? I mean, if I was on the city council, I would have been like, you just kicked out more businesses with the justification that you needed to make the building nicer. I've never heard anybody say the reason downtown Clearwater struggles is because the buildings just don't look like they did back in 1950 in the golden age. I've never heard anybody say that. Have you heard anyone at the city say anything that makes it seem like they understand the futility of this effort Miscavige is making? Or do they think it actually is a show of good faith?
Well, I do believe they think it's a good faith effort. And I keep warning them, this is just a mirage. He's just trying to say, okay, you did the 3 buildings and they look really pretty, so here's the CMA property you wanted. That's the only reason he's doing this. And he should not be rewarded. He should come through with exactly what he promised back in 2017. And I dug up Tracy's very first article about this downtown redevelopment that Miscavige came up with. And in that article, he's talking, he actually says, this is my idea. This was my plan. I talked to all the Scientologists here, and we all, you know, bought these buildings up, and we're going to put businesses in them, and it's going to be spectacular. Just give us that piece of property first. And then we're going to have this guy from Tampa who is a recruiter for businesses. He'll be busy putting businesses in every single storefront. Well, yeah, why don't you show us your good faith effort by having them do that right now? Have them put businesses into these buildings. Allow businesses to open. Stop standing in the way and prove that you really are serious about this. I also heard allegedly that Agami is asking, one business for $750,000 up front to be allowed to put a business in one of his buildings. And, who's taking that gamble? That, who knows what's going to happen when you see the same guy is only doing month-to-month leases and other buildings. So
it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. A few questions in the queue here. Matt Elliott wants to know, Mark, are you able to run for mayor after your 2 terms on the council?
Yeah, I would be able to.
I got to tell you, with 8 years by then, with 8 years of city council business under your belt, I dare say you would certainly be qualified.
Well, I believe you're correct. One time, Frank, Mayor Hibbard slipped, and when he asked the next person to speak, he'd say, "Councilmember Bunker, Councilmember," and one day he went, "Mayor Bunker." And I went, "Well, I like the sound of that."
And didn't he say something like, "You can have the job if you want it"? Didn't he say he was already pissed off, right?
No, not on that day. No.
Okay. All right, let's see. I saw this one. Anyone else here participate in Operation Chronology? Wasn't it was it Chronology or Chanology?
Yeah. Chanology.
Okay. And that is what they called the anonymous movement about Scientology, right?
Right.
Okay. So do you know this person? Is this a screen name you're familiar with? I doubt. I actually can't read it.
I can't read
fine.
anything without these.
All right. That's all right. All right. Lisa Cunningham says, what pisses me off is all the empty buildings that could be used by the whole community not sitting vacant. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much everyone's main beef with Scientology at this point, as far as a community partner is there.
Sure. I mean, we could allow a theater troupe to take over a building and do theater in a storefront. We could do a lot of different things to bring some life down there, but it doesn't get allowed. It's like, oh, this is impossible. There was one woman who wanted to put together, I think, a little school in one of those buildings. And she unfortunately said the word Scientology at the Downtown Development Board, and they gavelled her to silence immediately.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes. And I just, the thick irony of a board called the Downtown Development Board being manned up by a bunch of Scientologists who are the reason there's no downtown development. Like, I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible.
And if it was manned by entirely Scientologists and we had a thriving downtown, that'd be fine.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
If they were actually, conducting business and actually being good neighbors, and bringing in some income for the city to kind of counteract everything else that we've gone through for the decades.
Yeah.
That'd be fine. I always said nice things about Agami until, this past year when we're seeing these troubles.
Exactly. Okay. Selena, let me figure out how to pronounce this last name. Camwar is what I'm going to go with. Mark, would I be able to attend a City of Clearwater public meeting as a visitor? I'm not a resident, but I will be visiting the city and wondering what the rules are for who can attend.
Yes, you don't need to be a Clearwater resident to speak. If you come to our Thursday night meeting, we allow citizens to come to the microphone at the beginning of the meeting, and they have 3 minutes to talk. You don't even have to be an American. You can come over from Switzerland if you want, and Euro or whatever. But the idea is everyone has the right to speak. So please come and visit, share your
Yeah.
thoughts.
And even if you don't want to speak, you can just come and watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Apostate Alex asks, question, Mark, what has the relationship been like between the city and Scientology's architecture firm, Gensler? Has there been much dialogue?
Well, that I don't know. I mean, the work that they do for Miscavige, it does not really go through us, except I'm sure the planning department approves the plans that are submitted, just like any other project that goes up. But I don't believe we have any complaints about the firm that does the work, because they appear to be a solid company. I mean, you look at the buildings they put up; they're attractive buildings filled with fraud.
Exactly.
It's not, but that's not the problem of the folks who actually constructed the building.
Yeah. All right. So A Disselbio says we should all pitch in and buy Miscavige a copy of Dianetics to help him communicate better. That's an idea. Hill 10 Fap, aka CO Bilf, his words are wise. His face is beard. Comrade Bunker is the rightful chairman and paramount leader of the Tampa Bay Markabian People's Republic. Nice. We'll put that on a postcard for your campaign.
Thank you.
Lauren S. Mark, thanks so much for your work. In many ways, it is a thankless job, and I would imagine in Clearwater even more so. Keep fighting the good fight.
Well, I get a lot out of the job. I mean, I enjoy it. You know, the Scientology stuff, that's just a hobby. I'm happy to take them on. But I enjoy, every aspect of the job. And I just came back from a 3-day conference in Orlando for the Florida League of Cities, where, Clearwater is part of this organization where that helps other cities to grow and does a lot of work at the state level, trying to get some changes done for ourselves. It was an interesting conference. I never come away with great solutions to things. I went to affordable housing seminars and things about, dealing with, there's things that you really don't think about, like home rule is a big thing, where the state supersedes us on a lot of things we can do. People complain that on the beach, you got all the Airbnbs buying up properties, putting in party houses, taking away affordable housing there for workers on the beach. And what can we do about it? Nothing, because the state has laws that say it's out of our hands. And that is incredibly frustrating on a number of issues. But it's always interesting trying to work on these issues and see what we can do to make life better for people. And I enjoy that.
I got a question relating to this. So, your first time round, you were running, to be at least someone that knew what the hell was going on with Scientology. You were also running because you felt like it was the right thing to do. And you were pretty open about the fact that you weren't the most well-rounded candidate on all of the issues, but you were there to learn. Do you feel like you've been able to do that over the last 4 years?
Yeah, I believe I have. And I have met people in the community, not enough people. There are still a lot of sectors of the city that I have not visited. I was reading an email from somebody just a couple of days ago saying, I think there's one person on the council who hasn't even visited our neighborhood on Neighborhoods Day. And I have a hunch it was me, because the first year, every year we have one day where we rotate around to the different neighborhoods to say, hi, I'm council member so-and-so, and answer questions. And we spend like a half an hour at each neighborhood and get whisked off to another neighborhood. The first year, COVID was ongoing, so there was no Neighborhoods Day. The next year, I had some heart surgery, so I was in a weakened state, and I went to the first first stop, and it was clear that I could not continue. So they escorted me home. And then this past neighborhood stay, the city put together a route for me and said, you're going to these neighborhoods. And so I didn't hit their neighborhood yet. It's not because I don't care. In fact, I'm going to, hunt them down and go to one of their HOA meetings and talk to them then and see what more I can do. I don't think you need to actually visit the neighborhood to care about the problems they're having. And I'm always happy to address any situation that comes up.
That's great. JW says, sent you an email. Scientology is good at buying and repairing buildings, so they don't need tenants because of the reinsurance company can carry everything. Plus, could be front-running insurance costs to Scientology-related tenants like Uncle G, who's Grant Cardone. So I do remember seeing an email about the insurance issue. Scientology owns all their properties outright. They don't have any mortgages. I don't know that insurance issues or insurance loopholes have anything to do with their strategy. But I get what you're saying, and I'll take another look at your email. Thank you, JW. Donna McDowell, thank you for the super sticker. Courtney Youngs, my first live with Aaron. Thank you for what both you do. Keep up the fight. SPTV forever. Mark, when people in the community do talk to you, is Scientology what they mostly want to talk about, or is it just all of the issues?
Well, I mean, it depends. You when it a lot of folks want to talk about Scientology because they have not had anyone else to talk to about it. But look, we have a new CRA district going up in the North Greenwood neighborhood. We're trying to take care of some blight and make lives better there. So when I'm there, I'm talking to the folks who volunteer at the free clinic. Or just a couple of weeks ago, I took a tour of the Homeless Empowerment Program. They have 8 acres of amazing services. And this is a group that does everything right. Unfortunately, because of budget limitations, they address the problems of homeless families and vets. So other individual homeless people, there's no room at the inn, which is always the case everywhere. And it's shameful. But seeing all the things that this group does well, how they have job fairs there. There's job training and monthly job fairs where people, at least 5 people a month, get jobs out of it. And they all start at $17 an hour. And if they're living there for free while they're getting back on their feet, that's a good way to get started. So I am happy to help these folks in any way possible. So some people don't want to talk about Scientology at all, and I'm fine with that. There's no reason we have to talk Scientology all the time, although I'm always willing to discuss it.
Right. I mean, of course, Scientology is going to continue to try to paint you as nothing but a single issue candidate, but most importantly, a bigot. It's amazing when you point out to people that the abuses you speak out against regarding Scientology, you are actually advocating for on behalf of the Scientologists.
Yeah.
So they're the ones who are being abused.
Yeah. I mean, I keep pointing out I'm fighting for you. And there are folks who have been in my videos from 20 years ago who have left, who have contacted me to say, thank you. You were right. One who wasn't in my video, but encountered us during the LMT years was David Miscavige's niece, who mentioned in her book how odd it was that we would be out protesting in the street and Scientology would keep them behind closed doors and shutting the blinds so they couldn't see any of the infada that was going on there. And this was really bugging the niece, and I can't think of her name right now.
Jenna Miscavige.
Okay. And she wrote in the book, that was the only half hour where I could be with my Scientologist boyfriend as we grabbed a bite to eat in our long, busy day. That was it. And now we couldn't go out there because they didn't want us to see something that was too scary for us. I mean, why do they have to hide? What's Scientology afraid of when they've got the tech to handle anything?
It's true.
So that kind of dichotomy raises doubts in people's minds and plants a seed to actually grow into some serious concerns and thoughts of leaving.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right, everyone. One more time, I want to show you Mark Bunker's channel at Mark Bunker. Mark Bunker. Go and subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot of videos. I mean, during campaign season, I truly believe Mark and I will be able to do one video a day, even if it's, hey, what happened today in the campaign trail?
And I'm gearing up my studio right now. So I will not have the technical issues that bothered us this time. And it's going to be fun.
Awesome. All right, everyone, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thanks to everyone who watches until the very end. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click